Remember last week when I lightheartedly leaned into the looming viral apocalypse? Well, I'm not going to do anything like that this week, so you can relax. Imagine the futuristic year of 1999. The USA has fallen to mass civil unrest. Free fire zones exist where the police don't enter, and the citizens reject their authority. Oh,
fudge.
Cops gave this place up.
We can't go this way.
Fudge.
Razorheads control this whole area now, man.
For some reason, high schools still operate in these free fire zones, and when Cody Culp, played by all of my haircuts from 1996, gets out of special futuristic boy prison, he heads back to school to find out there's something not quite right with the teachers. They're
flipping
robots, mate. Directed by Mark L. Lester and acting as a sequel to his earlier film, The Class of 1984, 99 carries the themes of that film forward but inverts the student-teacher antagonism, and I cannot stress this enough, adds robots. A highly commendable decision that I just wish more sequels had the balls to take. The main and most obvious speculative through line of The Class of 1984 was what if we don't act to curb violence in schools? The Class of 1999 takes that question one step further by asking what if we overreact to violence in schools. Much like The Running Man, the satirical takes of The Class of 1999 feel way nearer the knuckle than they did 30 years ago. Scenes of metal detectors and gun violence in schools make for pretty uncomfortable viewing in the current climate, much how lots of Running Man's fake TV shows feel like real formats in 2020. Whilst the original film was basically Death Wish in a school, the sequel seems to want to take elements of RoboCop and the Terminator and place them in a collegiate setting in order to discuss corporal punishment, corporate overreach, and violence in education.
I'm a firm believer in negative reinforcement, Culp. You better be careful from now on, Culp.
My PE teacher was like,
Burke.
but at least he wasn't a robo.
Burke.
Sadly, the thematic stuff is pretty lightweight. It's essentially a clothes horse onto which you can hang a serviceable sci-fi romp. Beyond the obvious, the film doesn't have a huge amount to say. It does manage to fit in a nice bit of body horror, which is pretty apt since the film's cinematographer was Mark Irwin, who worked on a number of classic early Cronenberg movies and coincidentally RoboCop 2, which was released the same year. The design and execution of the robots is pretty weak, which is a shame, because Eric Allard, who co-created Johnny 5 with the great Sid Mead, was hired for this film by Lester because of his work on Short Circuit. Also, 99 brazenly apes the Terminator in places, which only goes to underline how lacking it is in that department. In fact, some of the similarities to the Terminator are a bit, well...
Cody!
There are lots of positives to be had here though. There's lots of excellent stunt work on show, and when the effects work, they work really well. And then there's the cast. Yes, that is Pam Grier. Yes, that is Malcolm McDowell. And yes, that is Stacy Keach. Incidentally, I've read in various places online that Keach's character is supposed to have albinism. Sadly, it appears that nobody involved in this film knew what that was or what it looks like. The 1980s has been endlessly mindful nostalgia, and I often find the kind of movies that movement is pining for never actually existed. Except for when they did, and The Class of 1999 is definitely a good example. The sheer absurdity of the whole thing allows it to sit next to Kung Fury or Turbo Kid. Particularly ironic since the film was released in 1990, having been shot 2 years earlier in 1988. Ultimately, the best way to describe The Class of 1999 is that if you tried to explain it to someone, they would think you were making it up. The evil corporation is called Megatech. And how much storage does a hyper-capable, hyper-realistic war droid need?
Mr. Bryars, 1 million megabytes.
That's a terabyte, mate. The average teenage boy has more porn than that on his phone. Not me though. I've got way more. It's often said online that we should be remaking films that didn't work instead of ones that did, and I'm usually asked to pick one. Having watched this now, I've decided that I'd definitely remake The Class of 1999. It would either be a sharp satire on the state of education, or deeply crass and insensitive. It'd be the second one. Class of 1999 is available on Blu-ray now. Also, someone's uploaded it to YouTube, but you didn't hear it from me. Bye! Support your 7th or 8th favourite YouTube channel by buying crap, tat, junk, hogwash and filth at redbubble.com/people/Verde shop.
Partia, razum na